Hi there. Here's a story I think you might have use of. It happened, I think it was in the early 1990s. And at that time, at least in my country, and I think in a lot of countries, newspaper industry had most of their activities downtown. In Stockholm, it, for instance, meant that big printing presses was in the cellar of a big building in the capital. And on the top, the journalists sat. But then technology developed and they realized that no, they didn't need to have the printing presses in the capital. There were a lot of good reasons for getting them out of the capital. One was actually the chemicals. They could transfer all the data from what journalists did somewhere else with the help of a cable, you know, wire connected transfer of digital data. So they decided to build a new printing factory outside the capital, a big one. And then they would wire all the data from the headquarters to the suburbs where the printing presses was. Took some time to build that factory. And then they started to install these tremendously big printing presses, one after one. But when it was time for the fourth one to be installed, they had realized something else. Since they could transfer data with wire, they could actually also transfer data with wire to some other place on the country. And that meant that they actually realized that they could have the fourth printing press somewhere else in the country. So the fourth one never got installed. And the big room is still not used. Hmm. One might laugh on this, but here's the thing. We tend to do a similar kind of mistake time after time. And actually, here's a good example of that, which happened fairly recently. Do you remember Blockbuster, the video chain? They're gone nowadays, right? Bankrupt. Of course, they, in the early 2000s, realized that, yeah, people would like to have their videos digitally instead of as a VHS. And of course, the CEO realized that it was a development that was ongoing. There's an interview with him on YouTube you could find where he discusses this from that point in time. But he had the idea that actually people would download the video they wanted in the stores and then go back home and watch it. And then 3 years later, he realized that people actually downloaded the movies back home simply because the wire connection they had back home was good enough. And then Blockbuster closed down, I guess. Two stories that both of them have, I think they have a rather good message. And the message is digital technology tend to develop not in a linear way. Sometimes, and pretty often, it can actually be exponential. And that literally means that things can actually be done pretty often far sooner than we might think. Hmm, cool, right? Think about that when you find Zoom not good enough at this moment.